Hey everyone, just wanted to share some thoughts that I feel like the Lord's opened up to me in the past day or two. Spending a little time thinking about 1 Kings 18 and 19. May be familiar with the story, but in chapter 18, we see Elijah on Mount Carmel. We get King Ahab, and there's prophets of Baal. There are prophets of Asherah, and they meet at this mountain, and they have altars prepared. And essentially the challenge of Elijah goes something like, whose ever God consumes this sacrifice would be the one true God, and worthy to follow. So we know that the Lord brings down fire after the other prophets tried to get their gods to consume their sacrifice with no success. Elijah kind of even taunts them a little, just to kind of pour salt in the wound. So they go all day long unable to generate any success. So Elijah prays. He's watered it all down. He's poured water all over the sacrifice, the altar. The trench is full, right, just to take away any inkling of doubt as to the validity of what the Lord was going to do. So fire comes down immediately after he asks and consumes the altar, the stones, the dirt, the sacrifice. It's all licked up. Now, we know then that Elijah gathers all these prophets. There's something like 850 of them. And he gathers them all up, puts them to death. And now Ahab has went back to his home. And in chapter 19, this is kind of where this is based out of. So we know Elijah has just seen this incredible life-changing moment with the power of God made manifest. So it says in verse 1 of chapter 19, "Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, 'May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them.'" It says in verse 3, Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there while he himself went a day's journey into the desert. He came to a broom tree, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. "I have had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay under the tree and fell asleep. So this really kind of stuck with me. And, I just kind of sit back and think, how in the world does a man go from such a high of what he experienced in the moment and to utter doubt and fear by this Jezebel? If he saw the power of God in such a just awesome way, how is it that he was so fearful? Now, I don't pretend to think that this is the only learning that's available, but this is something that he's shown me, and I want to pass on. It's too good to keep to myself. So as I ask this question, after all Elijah sees, he fears Jezebel's threat on his life, and he runs away. Why? So as I asked the Lord that, one of the things he answered me with is fear is unreasonable. It will take over your rational thinking if you let it. Fear is irrational. Now, in that moment when I received that, I thought to myself, well, now fear can be helpful in some situations. It can keep you out of dangerous situations, or can drive you away from potentially dangerous situations. Now, as immediately when I had that thought, I heard the Lord say, "Don't say fear is healthy because it keeps you out of danger. That is the Spirit's job. You are not led by fear. Be led by the Spirit." The verse came to me, "I have not given you a spirit of fear." The verse came to me, "Perfect love casts out all fear." So he says, don't give place to fear. Okay, so that's good. Now, the second part of what he taught me is a bit more untraditional, non-traditional, and so just kind of follow me, follow this line of thinking. So in verse 3, it says Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. Now, I wanted to see what other translations do with that sentence, and the majority of them say the word afraid. And as I looked up the definition, or the original text, the word there for afraid, it's translated afraid, but it's the Hebrew word ra'ah. So it's R-A-A-H. Ra'ah. I think that's right. Now, like I said, in all the translations, it's rendered as afraid. But that's because of the context. So when we read the rest, Elijah was afraid and he ran for his life. He goes on to say, I've had enough, take my life, I'm no better. Than he lays down. Now, he goes, he ends up talking to the Lord on down in like around verse 10. He's talking about being very zealous, but the Israelites have rejected his covenant, broken down his altars, put prophets to death. I'm the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. So it's clear that he's fearful. We're not debating that. However, I think this is interesting here that I feel like the Lord's shedding light on. So it mostly always gets rendered as afraid, that word ra'ah, because of the context, but it actually means see, S-E-E. So of the over 1,300 times it's used in the Old Testament, over 1,000 of those times it's used to mean either see, look, or behold. Okay. Now, if you look at the different ways that it is, or the different times it is used, right? Over 1,000 different places for this one type of meaning. It's the same word used when God saw that his creation was good in Genesis 1, and God created, and God saw that it was good. It's the same word. It's the same word for Noah when he removed the ark's covering, and he looked, and behold, the ground was dry in Genesis 8. It's the same word in Genesis 9 when Ham saw his father's nakedness. In Genesis 12, God told Abraham to leave his country and go to a land that he would show him. So as I began to follow this thinking, I believe that there's more to this word than we've captured, or than we are capturing. I believe seeing this word, ra'ah, it wouldn't be out of line to believe that Elijah was shown. He saw it. One of the potential renderings of that word, ra'ah, is also used as the word seer, S-E-E-R. So it's one who has the ability to see, see into the unseen, prophetically, into the future. So I believe that what we have not had access to understand is that Elijah, sure, he was afraid. That's clear contextually. But what I believe that Elijah was shown, or he saw, that Jezebel's threat carried a weight or a truth, and he became fearful and discouraged. So he failed the test called faith and trust. He didn't want to continue, and he said, I've had enough. Right? He tells the Lord, he says he was afraid and he ran, and I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. So we on into that chapter, right? An angel of the Lord, and the word of the Lord came to him. What are you doing here, Elijah? He replied, I've been very zealous, right? We read this. They've broken your altars, broken your covenant, put your prophets to death with a sword. I'm the only one left, and now they want to kill me too. And so the Lord said, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Now, this is just a little sidebar here, but remember, so the Lord is going, he said, I'm going to pass by. Does that sound familiar? Because I immediately think of Moses when he asked to see God, right? Remember, he's on Mount Horeb as well. This is the same mountain that Moses saw God, but Moses asked. Now Elijah is just being offered this. He's going to pass by. So the Lord just announced it to Elijah. Interesting rabbit trail that maybe would be fun to follow. So now he says, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. Okay, now pay close attention to this sequence. It's very fascinating. The Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Now, so the sequence, there was wind, there was an earthquake, there was fire, and there was a gentle whisper, right? So 4 things. Now, all of those other 3 said the Lord was not in those. On the 4th one, the gentle whisper, it doesn't tell us that the Lord was in that. However, you can check this cross-reference, but it's when Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face. Now, Exodus 3, verse 6. This is going to give us a little insight into that last part where he was pulling the cloak over his face. So, Exodus chapter 3, verse 6 says, let me backpedal. Moses says, here I am, right? He's at this is the burning bush. And Moses says to God, here I am. And God says, do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Why is it holy? Because he's there. God is there. He's present. His presence is manifested, and it is holy. It's a holy place. Then he said, God, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. So Moses hid his face. Why? Because he was in the presence of God. So when Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face. So to me, this is a subtle indication that the Lord was in the gentle whisper. Now, we had mentioned that Elijah failed the test of faith and trust. He was given access to see the reality of what Jezebel threatened him with. I believe it was a legitimate threat, and I would even maybe go as far as to say that that Elijah saw that would happen. And so he became fearful and discouraged, but he failed to trust and have faith in God. So it may seem confusing, because you would say, well, if he saw that it was going to happen, then why does he need faith and trust? But I immediately think of in Isaiah, I think chapter 38, Isaiah prophesied to Hezekiah that he would die. So, but Hezekiah prayed earnestly, and God gave him 15 more years. There's many examples throughout the Bible where a thing is said to happen, and through prayer and intercession, God changes the direction or what the plan is for an individual. So Elijah is shown, I believe, that Jezebel's plan would be fruitful, but his failure to trust and have faith and seek the Lord to change the outcome. And so instead of seeking the Lord and standing and walking in faith and trust, he just kind of, in a way, lays down. Literally, he lays down and goes to sleep, just wants to die. He's discouraged, he's disappointed, he's frustrated. I've had enough. And so I believe this sequence, what happens to Elijah from this point is, I believe God just ratifies his request. Ratifies is to approve. So he basically puts a stamp on his requests and has him anoint his replacement, Elisha. So the Lord gives him instructions of who ought to anoint, and so you follow the story of Elijah on, and he's obedient, and he goes and mantles Elisha. I think that Elijah's ministry could have continued on, because God is seeking a people, a person, a man, a woman, boy, girl, who has a burning heart to see his will manifested on earth as it is already being manifested in heaven. So, but we go back to these four elements, right? There was wind, there was an earthquake, a fire, and there was a gentle whisper. And we can deduce from previous texts that the Lord was in the gentle whisper. So he says, when Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face, and he went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" This is the second time that he says that exact phrase. What are you doing here, Elijah? I immediately am taken back to when God spoke to Adam and said, "Where are you?" God knows. When he asks these questions, it's to stimulate the thing inside of us to honesty, to come before him with exposed and opened. And so it's, what are you doing here, Elijah? Like, this is not who you are to be. Now, this is what I believe the Lord showed me in this as well. So wind, earthquake, fire, right? These are powerful. These are awesome. Aspects of the Lord. And so he shows those. And so I believe he's saying these wind, earthquake, fire, right? These bold, these massive aspects of who he is, he's saying, these I am. But he shows himself in the gentle whisper. So I believe he's saying, these I am, but I am not angry with you, Elijah. It's like a dad who, when as a child you come to him and you know you've done wrong, but it's like a dad that comes to you not with a belt, but in tender affection. Yeah. So all these powerful, incredible, awesome aspects of the Lord, but he chose to show himself to Elijah in the gentle whisper. So I guess I'll leave that with that, and I do think that there was something there that didn't really appreciate before. So I guess, what do we learn from this? I think it's important to realize the power of going to God in, this is who I am, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm afraid of, and trying to be found faithful in the area of faith and trust. We cannot downplay the importance of prayer, intercession, not just on others' behalf, but also on ours. Don't be fooled by the trap of humility and things like that. Intercede for yourself. Pray for yourself. Sure, we don't lose that for others, but when we come to the Lord with what we're afraid of, what we need, what we hope for, I've seen, many of us have seen countless times where the Lord intervenes in those moments. So I would just encourage you to not be fearful, right? Fear is unreasonable. I just encourage you with that. Hope you walk away with something, and it blesses you like it did me. So thanks for watching, and until next time.